This video is about Russian handwriting. This is very important because Russians actually never print. They always write in cursive. So you're definitely going to need to be able to read Russian handwriting, but also write with Russian handwriting. I'm going to go through how to write the letters. I'm going to do it in the order that Между, нами does it in the homework activities book, starting with 1.1 упражнение G. I suggest that you follow along and complete the exercises from those pages as I'm showing you the letters. You can also skip around if you'd like by using the table of contents here in the video. I'm not sure if I make the letters perfectly according to the way a first grade teacher in Russia would teach me, but I have been able to have my handwriting understood by Russians. And in your book, you'll see a variety of different types of handwriting. Okay, let's go. Поехали. You might have seen some memes about Russian cursive going around the internet. Can you believe you're going to learn to read these words pretty soon? Don't worry, it's much easier than it looks. I have these lines here so that you can see which letters stay above the bottom line and which go below, and that some go all the way up to the top and some only go halfway up. So we are going to start with ka. We start with a little curly Q, go down and around and up, and then down. This is the uppercase ka. Let's do that again. Or sometimes people make it more simply like this. And then the lowercase ka is quite simple. Just half the size of this more simple version. Notice that it does not go up to the top like an English K. It stays only halfway up. Хорошо, let's look at M. A very important feature of M is this hook on the front. You hook around and go up and down, and it does it for both the upper and lowercase. And the upper and lowercase are really the same. The lowercase is just half the size. And now, M and T can sometimes get mixed up because watch what the T looks like. The uppercase, not so much. We start with a curly Q around the top, down and out on each side, and then one more line down the middle. Let's do a couple more of those uppercase T. And then the confusing one is the lowercase because it looks like English M. Sometimes we'll put a line above it, which helps it distinguish itself from other letters. And you'll also see Russians writing T like that sometimes. Now, how about A? For the Russian uppercase A, we'll make a little curly Q around, and then the lowercase A is pretty much like the English one. O is quite similar to English, and it's very simple. Uppercase, and then lowercase, half the size. Let's try a few words. If you want to, you can pause it and try it yourself first, and then check with what I do. Here we have kot, cat. Male cat. Remember that T looks like M, and that ka is only half the size. How about mama? This little hook in front of the M right here is very important. Otherwise, it might end up looking like another letter that we will learn soon. How about atom? Make sure not to mix up your T's and M's here. And if you want to make sure, put a little line above the T. Atom. Also make sure that your O doesn't look too much like an A, right? So O distinguished from A. Now we'll try V. Remember, this is different from English B. It's similar. This is what the capital letter will look like, and then the lowercase is a little different than ours, but looks pretty similar. Now let's try R, which of course can be mixed up with P. Very similar to V, but you just don't do the second hump there, although sometimes people make it simpler, more like this. The lowercase can be confusing because it looks kind of like P, but you do not close it. You do not do this. You do not close it like that. Leave it open at the bottom. And you do go below the line. N. If you remember how we started ka, like this, N is similar. But then we go around and make one more loop there. Uppercase N. That's a pretty one. Lowercase looks like this. S, very similar to English. C. O. We start towards the top, go halfway down, and then around. Don't bring this uppercase one below the line. However, the lowercase one does go below the line. Now, how about E? It looks very similar to its print version. Uppercase and lowercase half the size. Let's try a few. Dron. Remember, T looks like M, R, O, N. Dron. You can make a little line above the T. Era. E, ra. Remember not to close the R and to bring it below the line. Varvara. Varvara. Now we have ge. The uppercase ge starts just like the uppercase te, if you remember. We go across the top like this, but then we just come down once in the middle. Ge. Lowercase ge sort of looks like a backwards S, or sometimes when it's connected to the previous letter, it looks sort of like this hump. De. Uppercase de looks very similar to English. Lowercase de can be confusing because it looks like G. You can also sometimes see de written like this. Like M, L has an important hook on the front. In both the upper and the lowercase, and the lowercase is the same, just half the size. See how ge and L can look similar? But L has the hook. So it's important to make sure you have that hook in there so that it doesn't end up looking like ge. Uppercase P starts the same way as ge, and then just has another side to it. It looks a lot like pi sign. And then the lowercase can be confusing for us at first because it looks like N. P. Sh. We make it sort of look like a W, but we always come down on the right side here. And sometimes the lowercase sh is underlined. It makes it easier to distinguish it from some of the other letters. I, kratkaya. We make a letter that looks kind of like an English U and make sure we have the hat on it. I, kratkaya. And the lowercase, just a little simpler and smaller. Sometimes people will be a little careless about the hat and it'll not be in the right place, but it always should be there. Now we have a bit of a tricky one, but this is one of my favorites. Ya. We start with a little hook in the front like we had for M, go around and down. Let's try that a few times, kind of a tricky one. And the lowercase is exactly the same, just half the size. After that hard one, we have an easy one. It's pretty much like English E, but Russian ye. Now you kind of have a little curly Q like we started with ka. Go around like this, and then kind of make that circle attached. The lowercase is a little bit simpler, but same idea. And now I, exactly the same as we made the I kratkaya, but with no hat. Now let's try some of these words. I think you should give yourself a challenge, pause and try them by yourself first and then check. Here we have the word dolga, which means for a long time. Remember, de, lowercase, looks like G, English G. Do, remember the hook on the front of the L? And then dolga. Sometimes ge is also attached. But see how much L and ge look alike? Now we'll write the name of a famous place, Yalta. Remember the hook at the beginning of the ya, hook at the beginning of the L, ta, Yalta. Now we have Mai, the month of May. Hook at the beginning of the M, don't forget. Mai, and don't forget the hat on the ikrakaya. Now we have the word urra, which is what we say when we're happy. Ooh, remember it doesn't go below the line, but air does go below the line. Urra. Now let's try b. It starts the same way as g does, but then adds a little circle around to the right. B. And the lowercase looks quite different. Go around and to the right. Z looks like the letter 3, and the uppercase pretty much does look like the letter 3 in cursive, but the lowercase looks more like our Z, Z, and it does go below the line. The uppercase does not. Now we have ch. Ch looks a lot like oo, but it goes the other direction. Remember, oo went like that. Ch goes the other direction. The lowercase makes a little kind of half of a square here, and then to the right. Uy, I've only written in the lowercase because generally it's only lowercase. And you connect these two little parts together. And myak is not the soft sign, also only lowercase. It looks pretty much similar to its printed version. Let's try these words. We have the word voi, which means you, plural. Voi. Miać. Remember that both M and ya have hooks. So that means you probably have to pick up your pen. And then miać looks like this. It can be confusing if you don't put the hook, because then the ya could start to look something like ah or something else. So make sure to put that hook on the front. Obuv, which means shoes, footwear. Obuv. The U does go below the line in the lowercase. And now let's try zebra. I didn't really make my ye open enough there. There we go, a little bit better. Remember not to close the er. Here we have some fun looking ones. Here we have F, which starts with a little curly Q, and then sort of a half circle on each side. That's the uppercase. It stays above the line. The lowercase does go below the line and is a little bit simpler. Kind of a line down and then a little like a bow almost. F. Now here's my favorite one, not just because my name starts with it, but first with je you make a backward C, then go around and down, and then a forward C. I love this letter. It looks so cool. And then the lowercase is the same, just smaller. And yeah. And yo looks the same as yeah, but we just have our two dots. And actually, so you know, sometimes Russians will leave out the two dots on the yo, and they won't be written. I'll try to remember to keep them in. Here, let's try a couple of challenging ones. Giraffe. I'll try it one more time. And now telephone. Don't forget T looks like M. Hook on the L. I didn't quite separate those well enough. We'll try it again. Sometimes I do pick up my pen in between the letters. Now we're down to our last new ones. Here we have H. The sort of fancy way to write them is sort of two backward C's against each other. Sometimes I take a shortcut and just kind of write it like that. Ts. Here we have T looking like an E, but it adds a little tail onto it. T. And then the lowercase is the same, just half the size and a little simpler. Don't make the little tail too big though, or else you'll start to look like an O. So don't do that. Sh. Same thing. Looks very much like our sh that we had before, but with a small tail. And then hard sign, tvrdy znak. It looks, remember we had mjaki znak before, and I. Well, tvrdy znak looks very similar, but it has a little extra curly Q on the front. Here, let's try some important words. Хорошо, good. Sometimes you can underline sh to make it more distinct. Oftentimes I just write my h like this. Плохо. Hook on the L. Плохо, bad. Птица, little birdie. Remember, p looks kind of like English N. Птица. Птица. And щенок, puppy. Just a small tail and half the size of the ka. Be sure that as you go through these exercises, you read through the tips that are in your workbook as well. There's some great tips there too. Here, let's just take a look at what are some common mistakes, common maybe mix-ups. Of course, b and v are easy to mix up, but our b will look like this, whereas v looks like this. And then sometimes it's easy to mix up v with the mjaki znak, which kind of looks like a small version of it. This one is tall, this one is short. I've said it a few times, L, M, and ya. Make sure you have the hooks on them. You might be able to see that if we don't put the hook on the L, that it could look like a G. And if we don't put the hook on the M, it might look like an E. And if we don't put the hook on the ya, it could look like an A. Or yeah, or something else. Here we have pa, n, and air, which of course you can see how they could get mixed up. Ch, n, and g can also get mixed up sometimes. So let's try writing our state, Michigan. Make sure that, look at the difference between the ch and the n. The n has this line on the left here, whereas the ch does not. But they could be similar looking otherwise. We mentioned before that if you make the tail too long on the ts, it starts to look like oo. So don't make the tail too long, make it just a little short tail. T and p, if you don't make enough humps on the t, it could start looking like a p. Also, this line helps identify it. And be sure o and a are distinct, right? If you're connecting the o to the next letter, make sure it either does it at the top, or oftentimes Russians will just start their pen over, lift up their pen and start over after o. Of course, it's easy to see how s, sh, and sh could get mixed up, and soft sign and hard sign are kind of similar. You've done it! You can now read in Russian in cursive. Ura! We'll keep working both on our reading and our handwriting skills as we go.